2/3 of the world's women live in countries where abortion can be obtained for social, economic or personal reasons. In other nations, it's allowed in cases of rape, fetal abnormality, or when a woman's life is at risk. But El Salvador bans abortion in all circumstances, with no exceptions, and even charges women suspected of having one with murder. We sent reporter Sarah Spiller to find out why.
A rally in San Salvador, capital of Central America's smallest and most densely populated state. On the streets, the chants are about the onward march of social justice in a country that's seen bitter civil war and the transformation of former left-wing guerrillas into a political force. But amid the demonstrations, a protest about abortion and a law that's led to international calls for change. A law that criminalizes terminations in all cases, including rape, and even when a woman's life is at risk. A law introduced 15 years ago and now enshrined in this country's constitution, which protects life from the moment of conception.
We've been travelling around this country to investigate the impact of the law. The doctors who may face prosecution, claims that women who were put on trial for abortion are being denied access to justice, that women are being imprisoned for having miscarriages. Claims, too, that the ban on abortion has simply driven it underground.
This year, a case that made front-page news and was to ignite the debate about abortion here. The Ministry of Health had asked judges to intervene in the case of a 22-year-old mother who was 18 weeks pregnant. She was suffering from an autoimmune condition. The pregnancy was high risk. On top of this, scans revealed the baby was missing part of its brain and may not have survived birth. But if doctors went ahead with a termination, both they and the woman faced jail.
Me llamo Beatriz y tengo 22 años y soy de Usulután.
A campaign group released this anonymous video of the woman, known as Beatriz, making an emotional appeal.
Le pido al presidente, a Mauricio Funes, que me ayude a que la sala acepte a interrumpir el embarazo.
De políticos que no tienen compasión y que le falta humanidad.
Outside the country's Supreme Court of Justice, protesters called on judges to let Beatriz's operation go ahead. The case was to see doctors, politicians, the pro-life movement and the powerful Catholic Church locked in battle over a challenge to this country's law. For the group Akdati campaigning to overturn the ban, an opportunity too, to get a wider international audience for their cause, what they claim are the effects of criminalizing abortion.
Que las mujeres se mueren por este tipo de legislación no es solamente un discurso, es una realidad. Por otro lado, pone en evidencia que las mujeres afectadas por esta ley son las mujeres que viven en situación de pobreza. Es sobre ellas que recae la injusticia de esta ley.
Beatriz was being treated here at the capital's maternity hospital, and such were the sensitivities of the case, when we arrived we were told there could be no discussion of abortion. But then a tour with the hospital director. Midway through, he produced data on the causes of maternal death here. The figures showed 2 women had died from taking rat poison to end unwanted pregnancies.
To get rid of their baby?
Yes, and the baby and the mother.
So 2 women died from taking rat poison?
Yes.
We visited the hospital's postnatal unit. 30% of pregnancies in this country are to young women aged under 19. Last year, 7 children aged 9 years old became pregnant. And one case clearly concerned the hospital director. He told us about a 10-year-old, a victim of rape, who had a baby here.
So this was the victim of rape? She was 10 years old?
Yes.
And she had
a
I know you don't want to talk about the law on abortion, but it makes you think. Does it make you think?
Although we were not supposed to discuss abortion, the director did start talking about his country's law.
La ley nuestra no contempla ningún tipo de aborto.
¿Y tu opinión?
Do you have an opinion?
No puedo opinar ahorita de eso. Tengo restringido por la ley en este momento hacerlo. Sí. Pero debieran de cambiar la ley.
A picture was emerging of some medical professionals torn between their care of patients and their obligations under the law, facing seemingly impossible decisions in cases of medical emergency. One of these, an ectopic pregnancy, where a fetus can develop inside a woman's fallopian tube. If left untreated, there can be serious consequences. But across the capital, a leading professional association told us that because of the law, they had to wait before they could act.
Y mientras ultrasonográficamente haya señal de vida, no puede hacer el médico nada hasta que se rompe. Y eso pone en riesgo la vida de la madre, porque puede morirse en lo que yo puedo hacer una cirugía para salvarle su vida. Entonces son los errores de la ley que han quedado y que nos tienen amarrados a nosotros como médicos.
Because if you do this surgery before, the law said that you will be in the jail for 2 to 12 years. Usted sale de la operación o a la cárcel.
Despite reports to the contrary, at El Salvador's Ministry of Health, an official maintained no women had died as a result of doctors failing to intervene in cases of ectopic pregnancy. But an admission, other lives could have been saved.
Hay mujeres que se mueren con enfermedades complicadas que pudieron haberse tal vez prevenido si tuviéramos opción a un aborto terapéutico. Nosotros caemos en los pocos países por la presión del fundamentalismo religioso de tener todo tipo de aborto penalizado.
Sunday Mass and worshippers pack San Salvador's cathedral. In this devout country, the Catholic Church played a key role in pushing for the law on abortion. El Salvador is one of 3 states in Latin America to criminalize terminations in all circumstances. And when it came to the case of the young mother, Beatrice, the Archbishop made his position clear. Any challenge to the country's law would be resisted at all costs.
Ya veo venir el bisturí matando a los niños el día de mañana, porque se abrió la puerta. Mire, qué pena si eso se logra.
Que con la boca se confiesa para salvación.
A short distance from the cathedral, Pastor Dr. Lopez led another congregation. 6 services are held here every Sunday. This evangelical church has over 175,000 followers. Pastor Lopez questioned the motives of doctors involved in the case of Beatrice.
They say her life is in danger, right? That's a very good excuse.
You think it's an excuse? You think the doctors are wrong?
Most of the time.
Are you saying the doctors are wrong?
I would.
You're saying the doctors at the maternity
I would
hospital?
actually. Yes, I would.
You're not a doctor.
You know what? Yeah, we're
doctor,
surrounded. No, not at all. Not in that area. But then again, why would I affirm something that I'm not sure of? This is what they think. Going back to your question, what would I do? I would say, give it a chance. If that baby's born and she or he dies, well, that was God's will for some reason.
Away from the debate about Beatrice, we took a journey east from the country's capital. We'd heard claims that since the law was introduced, women have been given long sentences, not for abortion, but after having miscarriages, prosecutors saying they hadn't done enough to save their babies. We wanted to find out more about these women and their backgrounds. Lawyer Dennis Munoz has represented women who've been convicted.
De las zonas más pobres de El Salvador, los servicios de salud pública se encuentran bastante retirados de cada cantón o caserío de cada municipio para acceder a cualquier complicación, no solo obstétrica, sino también de cualquier servicio de salud que necesite la persona.
Dennis Munoz told us how he began examining the sentences women were receiving. One case horrified him. It concerned a young mother who lived in this district. We're calling her Manuela. Because of the reaction of neighbors to the case, we haven't used her real name.
Para nosotros Es emblemático el caso de Manuela y porque narra cómo el sistema de salud le falló a ella, y también el sistema de justicia, por cuanto nunca hubo prueba directa para que le condenaran a tantos y tantos años de cárcel.
We visited Manuela's family home to meet her father. It was here that the young mother went into labor. She struggled outside this hut.
Su hijo recién nacido cayó de manera repentina en el toilet. Ella quedó desmayada, como pudo, arrastrando. Llegó a su casa y fue allí donde le ayudaron su familia para llevarla al hospital. Pero su hijo recién nacido quedó dentro y murió. La policía al siguiente día vino a hacer la inspección. Dijeron que ella lo había asesinado a su hijo recién nacido.
Dennis Munoz told us that when police arrived at the house, they asked Manuela's father to put a fingerprint on a witness statement implicating his daughter. He doesn't read or write. She was charged not with procuring an abortion, a sentence of up to 8 years, but with murder, a 30-year sentence. But inside the family home, Manuela's father told us how his daughter had been ill whilst she was pregnant. In prison, her health got worse. Her father remembered the last time they visited and the call that followed.
Ella estaba bien mal. ¿Qué enfermedad? No sé qué enfermedad fue porque botó el cabello. Quedamos de ir y ya no, cuando lo llamaron ya dijeron que estaba muerta.
Manuela had Hodgkin's lymphoma. The cancer was not detected during her pregnancy or in hospital or when she was sentenced. She left 2 young sons.
La vida aquí es algo dura. Con nosotros no hay más niños, más solo ellos. Y los queremos a ellos.
In 2011, a year after Manuela's death, an independent forensic report found a lymphoma and preeclampsia may have contributed to her baby's death.
De chicas pobres, en situación de pobreza, que no tienen otra opción más que recurrir al sistema de salud pública. Casi que les dice de que tienen que salvar su vida y la de su hijo recién nacido, indistintamente de las condiciones inseguras en las que se haya llevado a cabo el parto extrahospitalario o fuera del hospital.
On the outskirts of San Salvador, Ilopango Women's Prison. We came here to gather more information about the sentences women have received. Maria Rivera claimed that she too had a miscarriage and then a journey from hospital to jail.
Del hospital hacen la orden para que me capturaran en el momento y luego en el lapso del día pues llegan todas las autoridades a detenerme por acusándome de un homicidio agravado contra mi hijo recién nacido. Me dictaron la condena. Y así hay muchas mujeres en este lugar que pues están aquí con delitos muy graves, condenadas y siendo inocentes. No es el caso mío, la excepción.
One concern is how women imprisoned following the abortion ban show up in official figures. The women's group Akdati estimates that over an 11-year period, up to 130 women have faced the courts, with over 20 convicted for murder. We visited the headquarters of El Salvador's Prisons Department. In the control room, amidst cameras monitoring inmates, a database. Would this tell us how many women have been imprisoned since the ban, and for how long?
So we might get the figures?
We saw Maria Rivera's details. Her crime was recorded not as abortion, but aggravated homicide.
How many women are in prison at the moment for the crime of abortion with life sentences?
It appeared there was some official confusion.
Gracias. So if we come back to you on that.
But as well as questions about the sentences women may be receiving and how these may be recorded, travelling around this state, Our inquiries were to reveal further disturbing concerns about the evidence used in these cases.
The accounts of women who face the courts here raise questions about their access to a legal defence, questions about forensic evidence, questions about what happens when women here are put on trial for abortion.
2009, and Karina Klimarko heard the outcome of her appeal against a 30-year murder sentence. She'd already spent 7 years in prison. A mother of 3 children, Karina had been sterilised, but the operation didn't work, and she says she fell pregnant unexpectedly, then went into labour. 4 years after her release, she told us how police gathered the evidence used to convict her. She said she was questioned as she lay in her hospital bed.
Entonces uno de ellos me decía de que porque había matado a mi hija, me decía. Sos una asesina, no es un aborto lo que has hecho, es un homicidio. Yo no les podía contestar nada. Yo solo veía en mi estado delicado que yo estaba que escribían. Ella pedía 50 años para mí. Era la pena máxima, decía ella.
In prison, Karina says she was abused by other inmates.
Fea, me decían que me iba a podrir ahí en la cárcel y me decían que cuando yo saliera afuera, otras personas se iban a encargar de estrangularme a mí como yo había estrangulado a la bebé. Y me decían que era una basura, me trataban de lo peor.
The women's group Akdati, based here in San Salvador, funded an independent forensic expert who challenged the state's evidence that Karina had strangled her baby. We listened to other accounts from women who've been released from prison after winning legal challenges. Marlena was a student aged 18 when she says she went into labour at between 3 and 4 months. She too was accused of murder. The forensic evidence in her case included animal remains.
Y lo que hicieron fue ponerme osamentas de un animal y decir que eran del niño que yo había tenido. Sé que es muy difícil porque hasta el momento hay situaciones que me recuerdan de mucho y lo único que hago es llorar porque sé que no puedo hacer nada y que lo que pasó, pasó. Pero que sí, acá en El Salvador hay muchas cosas que se las ponen de simple vista a uno sin poder investigarlo el más allá o el por qué que pasó todo esto.
Christina's 30-year murder sentence was commuted to 3 years. She maintains that she too had a miscarriage.
En el resultado de la autopsia dice que ella no puede dar la causa de la muerte del bebé porque es indeterminada.
Despite a court document stating the cause of her baby's death was not established, Christina said prosecutors still asked her why she hadn't done more to keep her son alive.
Ellos decían que yo tenía que defender la vida de mi hijo a pesar de cómo estuviera yo, pero ¿cómo es posible que yo estándome muriendo iba a defender a otra persona? No podía, aunque fuera mi hijo.
Que aquí en El Salvador tenemos una injusticia contra las mujeres en la forma del aborto, que aquí solo de penar, hablan solo de cárcel.
We wanted to ask officials about claims that women had been failed by the justice system. It appeared nobody was prepared to talk to us.
The Ministry of Justice turned us down for an interview. The Vice Minister of Justice turned us down for an interview. The Prosecutor General turned us down for an interview. The leading pro-life group turned us down for an interview. So we've come to the National Assembly to talk to politicians.
The leftist FMLN party won the presidential elections in 2009. And no, they wouldn't talk to us either. Then the arrival of opposition politicians, staunch supporters of the ban on abortion. What, we asked, did this right-wing politician make of the accounts of the women we talked to?
These are women from poor backgrounds, rural backgrounds, who describe a journey of arriving in hospital, hemorrhaging, and then going straight to jail because they have been reported on suspicion of having an illegal abortion and are then...
That is not, I don't think that's a fair treatment of justice.
You think that's unfair?
That's unfair,
Would
certainly.
your party look into that?
I will look into that, yes. Yes, I don't think that's fair.
And some of these people have been in prison for quite a long time.
That's not fair. That's not justice. We need to fix it.
Respect for this country's law on abortion may be born out of deeply held convictions. But during our investigation, many told us that this same law remains at odds with the realities women face here. And our evidence suggested that whatever the law, women do still seek out illegal terminations. We went to talk to a Catholic group who campaign for women to have access to legal, safe abortions. They've gathered information about the methods women will use to end unwanted pregnancies.
Que ellas introducen agujas de crochet, se ponen ácido de batería, sino antiparasitarios, y esos queman la vagina y hace cortes en la vagina y producen un gran sangramiento. Y otras veces ellas recurren a las varillas de la sombrilla también, ¿verdad? Y para introducírselas se meten algodón en la punta, ¿verdad? Cuando se la sacan, pobrecitas, ellas piensan que es con eso, pero el algodón se queda dentro del útero. Al sacárselas, el algodón se descompone adentro del útero y eso les produce también una pelvis inflamatoria, una enfermedad pélvica, epia que le decimos, y terminan muriéndose.
The Ministry of Health was unable to tell us how many women have had illegal termination since the country's ban was introduced, but they did give us a lead. They told us that the use of a stomach drug to induce an abortion up until 12 weeks of pregnancy had meant fewer maternal deaths. But it's still a criminal offence. We made contact with an underground network that supplies this drug and advises women how to use it. In the interview we recorded, the woman we spoke to said her group had been approached by 45 people last year. We've disguised her identity.
Entonces que realmente son unas pastillas que se usan para gástricos, para problemas gástricos. En la mayoría de casos que hemos atendido ha sido como mujeres bien jóvenes que no tienen la información, mujeres bien jóvenes que las han abusado sexualmente. Somos un caso de una niña de 14 años que el abuelo la violó. En lo legal, o sea, corres un riesgo bien alto. Realmente no hay quien otra lo haga.
For both sides in this argument, the stakes are high.
Las próximas generaciones más avanzadas que nosotros, naturalmente, les va a ser difícil entender cómo sus antepasados mataban a sus hijos de esta manera.
Nosotras quisiéramos decidir, más que todo en nuestra salud sexual. Si es tiempo, estamos en el siglo XXI.
El derecho a la vida de Beatriz.
And as this debate continued, outside El Salvador at the country's embassies abroad, protests over the case of Beatrice. Demonstrations too at the state's Supreme Court, who finally ruled against an abortion. Days later, the Ministry of Health announced that Beatrice had been allowed a caesarean section. She was 27 weeks pregnant. Her baby lived for 5 hours. Beatrice also asked to be sterilised. We understand doctors have now been investigating the impact of the pregnancy on her health. We'd asked how many women had been imprisoned under this country's abortion law, but we still had no response. Maria Rivera told us she missed her 7-year-old son.
Llegar la noche, pues, es muy doloroso. El pensar que es un día más, en que una noche más se llega y pues la falta de los que hemos dejado allá afuera es muy doloroso. En mi caso, pues la falta de mi hijo, pues lo que más me afecta a mí.
Lawyers acting for Maria Rivera are now awaiting an independent forensic report into her case. They intend to challenge her sentence.